Hey there, I'm Talia, founder of Workweek Lunch. Thank you for being here, and today we are going to talk about food budgeting. I'm going to talk about my philosophy and how to make a food budget, and there will be a part 2 where we're talking about tips for saving money on food, so I hope you watch that too. Let's get to it. Saving money is the main reason I got into meal prep in the first place. So I could talk about this forever, but in this video, I'm just going to go over my food money philosophy and some tips about how to get started with a food budget you can actually stick to. So let's do it. So I'm Talia. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, welcome. I'm really excited to share these tips with you. This is one of my favorite topics, so I'm excited to dive in. So I started meal prepping in about 2014. When I first graduated college, I moved to New York City just to save money. I quickly realized after, going to my job every day and buying food for lunch and for dinner that adds up really fast, and I needed a way to save money, and meal prep was the answer. I was very motivated to build an emergency fund and save money for snowboarding trips. My main reason for meal prepping, it wasn't just to save money to not use it. I had some very concrete reasons why I was saving money in the first place. So that motivated me to cook and also change some other things in my lifestyle, like not using cabs so much and also not going out and drinking so much and buying clothes so much. That helped me as well. So it wasn't just meal prep, but meal prep definitely made a big impact on how much I was able to save. I remember in the first year I started meal prepping, I saved about $250 a month. And again, that's kind of going from how bad it was before I started meal prepping, so that's kind of why I was able to save that much money. So I was really motivated to save money in the beginning because I cared more about my emergency fund and snowboarding trips than I cared about eating takeout all the time. I got more joy from snowboarding trips and knowing I had an emergency cushion, in terms of my savings, than I enjoyed going to takeout every day. It was an easy switch for me because it aligned with my priorities, my values, and what makes me happy. People don't talk about this enough, but when it comes to food budgeting, your priorities are really gonna drive the decisions here. I think a lot of us fall into the trap of like, oh wow, I spend so much on food, and you're looking at your credit card statement every month and you're like, wow, food, oh my God, but we eat every day. We have to eat every day. And just because you spend a lot on food, if that's you, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I've met people who love spending money on takeout and restaurants. That's their thing. That's what they like to do. They love to try new places. They love to support local restaurants, and they might not necessarily need to cut back because they enjoy it so much. The way you're spending on food now, if you're in your means, if you're not wasting and you enjoy it, you might not have to change anything. But of course, if you have some big goals down the road that you're saving for, maybe some tweaks are needed here and there, but I just want you to keep that in mind. No one's saying you have to spend as little on food as possible. That is no way to live, especially if it makes you happy. So before you make any changes to your spending, just check in with yourself and see if you're really spending money on things that make you happy, or maybe you're spending money on a lot of things that are not making you that happy. For me, when I was going through this process, in my early 20s, wow, I cannot believe I am not in my early 20s anymore. I realized that spending a lot of money on clothes, makeup, beauty services like getting my nails done, drinking and stuff like that, it just wasn't really making me happy. It kind of just felt like it was more like keeping up with the Joneses for me with that stuff, like keeping on clothing trends and all that stuff. It wasn't doing it for me, and I realized I wanted to stop spending so much money on that stuff so I could spend more on things that do make me happy, like traveling, snowboarding, and I love buying gifts for my friends. So those are the 3 things that I'm like, yes, I want to spend as much money as possible on these things. Of course, saving, investing, all that stuff's important too. So before you make a food budget, sit down, look at all the categories of spending and figure out where you would like to spend more and where you maybe want to spend less because it's not making you as happy. Cool? Cool. So when you've done that, here is how to make a food budget. I'm going to lay out the steps for you. By the way, we do have an amazing blog post that kind of lists this all out if you're more of a reader and less of a visual or audio learner. We have the steps written out for you, so I'll link that below. This is the basic process of how to make a food budget that you can stick to. The first step is track your spending for at least 2 weeks, specifically your food spending. So that can be done if you use a credit card. You can just look at your credit card statements for after 2 weeks of spending money on food and stuff. You can use an app like Mint. That's like my favorite free transaction tracking app. So you can sign up for that. And if you are a cash spender, you can do your best to remember to track it in your notes app on your phone or on a piece of paper in your wallet, or just keep those receipts from your food purchases. And that way you can get a sense of how much do you spend on food in 2 weeks, and you can kind of predict how much you would spend in a whole month. You can, by the way, food budget by week or by month, whatever makes sense for you. I like thinking about it by month, but sometimes by week also makes more sense. Once you have that information, take a step back and see how your food spending for that 2 week period or 1 month period fits into the rest of your spending. Again, we eat every day. It's okay if you're like, wow, food is my second or third biggest expense next to rent and other stuff, because we have to eat, we have to buy food. It's normal to spend a good chunk of money per month on food. The idea that we're all trying to spend as little as possible just makes me sick, because we don't necessarily all have to, and we do have to feed and nourish ourselves every day. Food is a source of pleasure. It shouldn't just be like everyone eating rice and beans to save as much money as possible. So yeah, you want to see where it fits with your income, your other expenses, and what that ratio is like, and figure out if you feel comfortable with it or not. You might find after this 2 week experiment that you're fine with your food spending. Actually, it makes sense, I've tried to do some research on how much the average American spends on food. It seems to be a little bit of a lower percentage compared to other countries. But again, I couldn't find anything concrete. It's all individual. Figure it out for yourself. See where it fits in all of your spending, and see if it's a level that you feel comfortable with. So let's just say you do this 2 week experiment and you realize, wow, I could spend a lot less on food, especially if you find that you're grocery shopping and you're wasting food, like a lot of it goes in the trash. Then maybe it's time to think about how can you make a change so that you're not literally throwing your food money directly into the trash, because that is truly a waste of money. Here's what I recommend. Well, first of all, we'll cover a lot of ways to save money on food in the next video, but I think if you're gonna try and cut back on your food spending, my tip is to do it a little bit at a time. Do not just go from spending 500 bucks a month to 100 bucks a month. Dial it back $10, $20 a week and see how it goes, because you don't wanna make yourself miserable. That's not the point here. The point here is just to see what tweaks you can make to carve out a little bit more money in your budget to put elsewhere in your spending. Start small. That could be planning to cook more at home. It could be changing where you shop. It could be trying to do more shopping at other stores, which takes more time, but maybe it'll save you money. It could be shopping your pantry and freezer and see how that goes for a few weeks. For me, it was meal prepping, because I didn't want to cook every night, but I knew that cooking was the answer to saving money on food. So that's how I came to meal prepping. And again, I saved over $250 a month in the first few months to a year of doing it. It was awesome. All right, thank you for watching video number 1. I hope this gave you a new, fresh way of thinking about food budgeting and your spending in general and how it relates to your happiness in life. I hope that you learned something about how to reframe your thinking around food budgeting. And in the next video, we'll talk about actual tips for cutting back on food spending. So I'll see you there. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out.